Okay, welcome to my channel, and let's get into today's video on the Supreme Court siding with the website designer, the Christian website designer, who is scared to death of designing a website for same-sex couples based on something that didn't happen, which means she shouldn't have even had standing to bring this lawsuit. So, yeah, let's get into it, and I hope that people have enough information about her business that whatever business she had goes belly up really, really quick, because if she can discriminate, people can say, we don't want to do business with you, which is legal. What she's doing, even though the Supreme Court is saying it's legal, I don't know. I don't think it is. But from what I'm reading, it's not as extensive as people are making it out to be. Could it become that extensive? Absolutely. So, yes, I do not put anything past this court, but for now, it's not as extensive as people are making it out to be. But let's get to the article. In a defeat for gay rights, the Supreme Court's conservative majority ruled on Friday that a Christian graphic artist who wants to design wedding websites can refuse to work with same-sex couples. One of the court's liberal justices wrote in a dissent that the decision's effect is to mark gays and lesbians for second-class status, and that the decision opens the door to other discrimination, which it does. The court ruled 6-3 for designer Lori Smith, which is the most generic name you could ever have, saying she can refuse to design websites for same-sex weddings despite a Colorado law that bars discrimination based on sexual orientation, race, gender, and other characteristics. Because religion trumps everything. The court said forcing her to create the websites would violate her free speech rights under the Constitution's First Amendment. Nobody is saying, when a web designer designs a website, nobody is saying that the web designer gives a flying fuck about the content. They might agree with the content, depending on the content. They may disagree. They might not care, because this is just a business. That's what you do when you design business websites. You might know butkus about the business. You might not give a crap about the business because it doesn't affect you. Nobody is saying that because you designed a website that you have an opinion on said business. And if you think that, then the problem is with you and not with the business. I mean, no, the First Amendment has nothing to do with this. Anyway, the court ruled 6-3. Oh, wait, I already read that. The decision suggests that artists, photographers, videographers, and writers are among those who can refuse to offer what the court called expressive services if doing so would run contrary to their beliefs. What writers exactly? Photographers, okay, but again, I fail to see how that's expressive. I mean, you're taking a picture that someone is paying you for. It's not like you're just deciding what pictures you want to take on a whim. But anyway, same thing with videographers. This is something you pay them for. That does not mean that they have any opinion. If that were the case, then we could think that journalists have a specific opinion because they cover certain stories. Not necessarily. There might not be any opinion there in the story, so what opinion are you? You don't just condone, say, a murder because a reporter is covering it. That isn't how speech works. So I do not understand how any of this is a violation of free speech. Anyway, if doing so, okay, but that's different from other businesses not engaged in speech and therefore not covered by the First Amendment, such as restaurants and hotels. I thought businesses were people and hence had free speech. Make up your damn minds. Justice Neil Gorsuch wrote for the court 6 conservative justices that the First Amendment envisions the United States as a rich and complex place where all persons are free to think and speak as they wish, not as the government demands. I'm sorry. I didn't realize that customers were the government. Gorsuch said the court has long held that the opportunity to think for ourselves and to express those thoughts freely is among our most cherished liberties and part of what keeps our republic strong. Nobody is denying that. There's a difference between your job and what you do on your job and your personal life. And if people confuse that, that's really not a you problem. That's a them problem. So nobody's doing what you're claiming they're doing. Especially since this was a theoretical exercise and not actually that a same-sex couple went up to her and asked for this website. And now after this, I hope her business tanks. Based on all the people who, don't have a problem with same-sex couples, and I just don't see her having a lot of business from people who either are unaware of her stance or who think like her. Because, since this went to the Supreme Court, people are going to hear about it. And if they don't, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of reviews on her business that's going to make sure people know what they're getting. The decision is a win for religious rights and one in a series of cases in recent years in which the justices have sided with religious plaintiffs. Last year, for example, the court ruled along ideological lines for a football coach who prayed on the field at his public high school after games, which also was the wrong ruling. And on Thursday, the court, in a unanimous decision, used the case of a Christian mail carrier who did not want to deliver Amazon packages on Sunday to solidify protections for workers who asked for religious accommodations. Good Lord, you have Christmas off. It's a fucking federal holiday. Same thing with Easter. And now you're asking for Sunday? Yeah, you guys aren't privileged at all. What the hell? Again, you can certainly talk to your employer about, what day you get off in a week, because depending on the employer and type of business, you might have some leeway, but damn, Christians are so freaking entitled. And no, I don't mean all Christians. Most of them are pretty cool. Alright, the decision is also a retreat on gay rights for the court. For nearly 3 decades, the court has expanded the rights of LGBTQ people, most notably giving same-sex couples the right to marry in 2015, which Thomas has already pointed out he wants to get rid of, and announcing 5 years later in a decision written by Gorsuch that landmark civil rights law also protects gay, lesbian, transgender people from employment discrimination. Wait, what? I missed that. So Gorsuch isn't a complete dick. Okay, good to know. In the latest decision, however, Gorsuch said that a ruling against Smith would allow the government to force all manner of artists, speechwriters, and others whose services involve speech to speak what they do not believe on the pain of penalty. What friggin' government? Again. How is a public business being coerced by the government? I'm sorry. No. Paying customers are not the frickin' government. For example, a gay web designer could be forced to design websites for an organization that advocates against same-sex marriage, he wrote. Which would suck, but again, it's their business. Countless other creative professionals, too, could be forced to choose between remaining silent, producing speech that violates their beliefs, or speaking their minds and incurring sanctions for doing so. Now, also about that, a gay web designer making a website against gay marriage. Okay, one is a civil right. The other is just being an asshole. So, no. So even if you want to split those hairs, still doesn't work. But, I can see why people think it does. Not gonna lie, but on the other hand, yeah, it's kind of your job. The court's dissenting liberal justices, led by Justice Sonia Sotomayor, warned that the decision will allow a range of businesses to discriminate. Yep. I mean, there's plenty of comments that I've seen which seem to think that any and all discrimination against LGBT people is perfectly fine now, whereas the ruling was narrow. So if people on the side of the LGBT community are getting this wrong, then what's to say that other businesses won't be getting this wrong? Today, the court, for the first time in its history, grants a business open to the public a constitutional right to refuse to serve members of a protected class, Sotomayor wrote in a dissent joined by Justices Elena Kagan and Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Sotomayor, who read a summary of her dissent in court to underscore her disagreement, said the decision's logic cannot be limited to discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation or gender identity. A website designer could refuse to create a wedding website for an interracial couple. A stationer could refuse to sell a birth announcement for a disabled couple. And a large retail store could limit its portrait services to traditional families, she wrote. Like I said, this could become ugly really, really fast. President Joe Biden said in a statement that the ruling was disappointing, adding that it weakens long-standing laws that protect all Americans against discrimination in public accommodations, including people of color, people with disabilities, people of faith, and women. Sotomayor referenced the court's history with the issue of gay rights in her dissent, writing, "The LGBT rights movement has made historic strides, and I'm proud of the role this court has recently played in that history. Today, however, we are taking steps backward." Ugh. Because let's face it, back to what Biden said about people of faith. If we can discriminate against the LGBT plus community, if website designers can do this, and like I said, this will eventually snowball to all businesses. Once that happens, what's to stop a business from saying that, "Oh, I'm sorry, I don't serve extremists, and I see all Christians as extremists, so I'm not going to serve any Christians"? How are you going to stop them? Ironically, the very law that is supposedly championing religious rights could be used against religion. So, yeah. So today is a sad day in American constitutional law and in the lives of LGBT people. The immediate symbolic effect of the decision is to mark gays and lesbians for second-class status, she wrote at another point. Even as it has expanded gay rights, however, the court has been careful to say those with differing religious views needed to be respected. Okay. The belief that marriage can only be between one man and one woman is an idea that has long been held and continues to be held in good faith by reasonable and sincere people here and throughout the world, just as Anthony Kennedy wrote in the court's gay marriage decision. Nobody is saying that. Nobody is forcing you to get married to someone of the same sex. That is literally not what's happening here. But if you have a public business, you have to, be open to the public. That's just common sense. If you're a public business, you don't want to be a public business, you want to be a private business, fine. Do that. But don't say you're a public business and then put all these burning hoops up. You're a public business or you're not. This doesn't say shit about her private life. And if you think that her creating websites for same-sex couples has anything to do with her private life, that is a you problem, not a law problem. The court returned to that idea 5 years ago when it was confronted with the case of a Christian baker who objected to designing a cake for a same-sex wedding. The court issued a limited ruling in favor of the baker, Jack Phillips, saying there had been impermissible hostility toward his religious views in the consideration of his case. What? Phillips's lawyer, Kristen Wagner of the Alliance Defending Freedom, also brought the most recent case to the court. Hold on. What hostility? Because they asked you to make a cake that, because that's your job? How is that hostility? I mean, what the fuck? On Friday, she said the Supreme Court was right to reaffirm that the government cannot compel people to say things they do not believe. The government isn't compelling people to do shit in this case. A public business asking to serve the public has nothing to do with the government. I have absolutely no idea where this shit is coming from besides people's ass. You are so wanting to make your religion to be the gold standard of how to human that you aren't even listening to the truth, which is, this is a public business. You are being paid to provide a service. No government is compelling you to do this. Nobody asked you to open a business. The government is not asking you to open a business and to make it a public business. The government isn't doing that. You decided to do that. It is up to you to serve the damn public. I fail to see what's the problem with this. Like I said, hopefully this case goes viral. People far and wide find out who this person is, what the name of her business is, and she suffers so badly. Not physically or personally, but her business suffers because it goes both ways, sweetheart. You don't want to serve same-sex couples? Fine. Not only do they, but other people who are their allies don't have to use your services either. So, if your business struggles and you have to end up closing shop, well, it's everybody just exercising their right to free speech. Disagreement isn't discrimination. That depends on the disagreement. And the government can't mislabel speech as discrimination to censor it, she said. Again, if you're telling someone that you're not going to take their business because you don't believe in their right to exist, Yeah, that actually is discrimination. Now, if you were a private business, then absolutely. Of course, at this point, I can't imagine any same-sex couple would want to touch this person with a 10-foot pole. So, I think you're safe. But again, this isn't speech because this anybody who thinks that you're actually advocating this by, doing a job, they're the ones with problems because you're doing your job. Anyway, Harrison Ford was not the biggest fan of Han Solo. He still did his job. I hear that he looks back fondly on Han Solo now, but still, he did his job, whether he liked the role or not. He did the job. So, again, I fail to see what point you think you're making. While basking in the legal win, it's going to be short-lived, sweetheart, because your business is going to be short-lived. Smith was forced to answer questions about revelations this week that a man her legal team said requested a wedding website had never asked to work with her. Ooh. I knew that it was completely theoretical, but I wasn't aware of this part. The request from a person identified as Stewart wasn't the basis for the federal lawsuit filed preemptively by Smith before she started making wedding websites, but it was referenced by her attorneys. So, again, there was no legal standing to bring this lawsuit because there was no threat of this woman having to make a website for something that she's her religious or pure true religious beliefs would be violated. And yes, I'm being sarcastic because at this point I do not care to think she thinks she's going to be burning in hell for eternity for creating a website because she's just a horrible person. At least wait till somebody bothers to do this. I mean, maybe she thinks that this is going to bring her all sorts of great publicity. That, oh, look at me. I stand up for my religious beliefs. Yeah, like I said, this could turn out really, really badly. And I hope it does. Stewart told the Associated Press he never submitted the request and didn't know his name as invoked in the lawsuit until he was contacted this week by the New Republic, which first reported his denial. Oh, that just makes this whole thing even worse. Not only did they make it up, but they are dragging someone into this mess who didn't want to have anything to do with this in the first place. Oh yeah, her business is going up in flames as we speak. I was incredibly surprised given the fact that I've been happily married to a woman for the last 15 years, he said. He declined to give his last name for fear of harassment and threats. It was not included in court documents listing his phone number and email address. Just that much is just horrible. And I don't blame him for being worried about getting threats because he had nothing to do with this. Anyway, Wagoner said the wedding request naming Stewart was submitted through Smith's website and denied it was fabricated. The lawyer said it could have been a troll making the request. That's always possible. I wouldn't put it past people. Smith, who owns a Colorado design business called 303 Creative, keep that in mind, folks, 303 Creative, That I'm gonna have to look that up and see what's become of that business because, yeah, does not currently create wedding websites. She has said that she wants to, but that her Christian faith would prevent her from creating websites celebrating same-sex marriages, and that's where she ran into conflict with state law. Oh, don't worry, you're never going to get the chance to create wedding websites because nobody's going to want to work with you anymore. Or very few people, I should say. Uh-oh. Oh, excuse me. Colorado, like most other states, has a law forbidding businesses open to the public from discriminating against customers. And about half of the states have laws explicitly prohibiting discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. Colorado said that under its so-called public accommodations law, if Smith offers wedding websites to the public, she must provide them to all customers, which makes sense, regardless of sexual orientation. Businesses that violate the law can be fined, among other things. Smith argued that applying the law to her violates her First Amendment rights, and the Supreme Court agreed. And I have got to find this 303 Creative because I'm really, really curious. So that's the end of the article, but let's look up 303 Creative and see if they have a business page and just how badly it's about to go under. Okay. Doesn't have a Google business. That's too bad. So they do have a website, which I'm not going to click on. But yeah, I'm not seeing a place for reviews, which is too bad. But let me just click on see if the verify. Okay, so the website is still active. But yeah, it would be really awesome to know just how much of a hit this business is going to take. She said she hasn't started making wedding websites, so am really curious now if she started and how many people are actually using that service, because she's getting plenty of publicity. And now I know that Colorado is in general a very religious state, but it'll be interesting to see. Wait, isn't their governor gay? I think so. So it's going to be interesting to see what this did to her business. I would love to know. I would love to know if her business is still booming, if her business has felt any drawbacks to this ruling. Whether it's more Christians who are flocking to her website, or if because of her views that people just don't want to use her services because of her views. I mean, I used to work for a business where they found out, oh, this company that we've used for years supported the insurrection, so we're not doing business with them anymore, which is fine. I have no problem with that. So I wonder how many people have looked at this ruling and said, yeah, no, we're gonna work with someone who isn't afraid to, do their job. So anyway, I'm rambling. So with that, I will see you in the next video.